What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today we are reacting to the UFC 309 press conference, which just took place with Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, and the rest of the crew. And so I just want to go through a couple of things and takeaways from the presser. First thing, of course, I want to start with is Jon Jones, and I actually thought this was quite a success for Jon Jones in the presser. Stipe Miocic was asked a bunch of questions as well. Now, the thing that I was afraid of, and I would have been quite annoyed with, and it did kind of happen to some extent, but I was afraid that the entire focus of the press conference was going to be around Jon Jones, quote unquote, ducking Tom Aspinall, which again, as I've said many times on this channel, is I believe is a false narrative because he's simply taken the fight that was scheduled. People have called him a duck, but this was the fight that was scheduled by the UFC long time ago. It got postponed. He's still just taking the fight. So what is he supposed to do? Obviously, I've said this many times. What is he supposed to do? Just say, Stipe, I don't want to fight you anymore, and I'm going to fight Tom Aspinall to unify the belts, even though we already have the scheduled bout and the fans are egging me on. So I'm just going to listen to that. No. He's got to go ahead and he's got to focus on this fight, focus on his current opponent, who's arguably one of his most dangerous opponents to date. I think people are dismissing him because of a combination of age and the fact that he lost his last fight to Francis Ngannou. But Francis Ngannou has beaten most people he's fought and is really not that old for the heavyweight division. So anyways, I digress. But I thought that Jon Jones did a great job. And I think I did hear some quacks at certain points from the audience and people saying stupid stuff. And at one point, Dana White even was asked, hey, will the winner of this fight Tom Aspinall? And he said, yes, I do believe that the winner of this fight. I don't believe Dana when he says that, though. I think he's saying that. But I think he actually doesn't want Jon Jones to fight Tom Aspinall and potentially lose. But when Dana did say, yes, the winner of this fight should fight Tom Aspinall, the entire crowd erupted and cheered and whatever, and that was cool. And I think Jon Jones was asked a follow-up question about whether or not he wants to fight Tom Aspinall, and he said, which is exactly correct, I'm not thinking about anything past this fight. I'm focusing on my current opponent, Stipe Miocic, who's very dangerous, and that's what I need to focus on. And that's, I think, what people should have recognized, that what he should be focusing on this entire time. It's the task at hand. It is a pretty heavy task. I know the odds are saying like 5-1 or 6-1 or whatever, but this is a very dangerous fight. And a lot of people very much in the know have said the outcome of this fight is a coin flip. So that's what should be going on. And I think one of the things that was sort of disappointing me is that there's been so much commotion made about Aspinall and not fighting Aspinall and him ducking and all this nonsense, is that this amazing moment, this culmination of over a decade in the sport and all these successes and this tremendous career was going to be ruined, or this legacy was going to be damaged because of this narrative. They got spun out of control and just keeps getting worse and worse. Maybe Jon Jones did throw some gasoline on the fire by saying even if he wins, he's going to fight Pereira instead of Tom Aspinall, which I get that that's a bit inflammatory, but that hasn't even happened yet. This is just talk. This is all nonsense right now. And what about other fighters who, when they're champions, they're in the lightweight division, which has happened, or they've even talked about saying, hey, instead of fighting the next guy in line, I want to fight Conor McGregor. Let's go, Conor. Let's come in and let's have a fight, right? That could also be considered ducking. But again, those people are just taking the money fight. And that's what Jon Jones is claiming, that he theoretically wants a money fight with Alex Pereira, not necessarily just to fight Tom Aspinall, the next contender in line. But it's all talk. So I think this whole thing got blown out of proportion. I think Jon Jones did a terrific job at the press conference. I think people gave him his respect. I think people are excited to see the fight, and it was quite solid. And Dana White was asked, who is the GOAT, who is the pound for pound best fighter, and he again stated unequivocally that he feels that while Jon Jones is active in the sport, he's the guy, he's the man to beat. So anyways, all in all, I thought it was a pretty interesting press conference. I thought Jon Jones handled himself well. Wasn't the most exciting presser, wasn't the most fascinating, wasn't the most beef that's ever been there, but I thought it was pretty entertaining. Okay, moving on to topic number 2. Michael Chandler got a fair amount of time on the mic. Now, right when Michael Chandler was first asked a question, the crowd booed him pretty hardcore, pretty aggressively. And I don't think it's actually hatred for Michael Chandler. I think it's more just such a fan base and so much support for Charles Oliveira, which he himself acknowledged. And yeah, I thought it was I thought it was a pretty good job by Michael Chandler overall, just saying, hey, I know you guys are bullying me because you love Charles Oliveira. I love Charles Oliveira as well. And it kind of went from there. He also was asked again about his comments of stating that Charles Oliveira was a quitter. And I think he essentially was saying that he said the word recount, but I think he meant recant. He was essentially saying he's recanted that statement, and then he goes on to say, hey, but we all have a little bit of quit in us, so it's my job or our job to bring that quit out of people. Take that for what it is. But then Michael Chandler was asked about Conor McGregor. And I was going to make a separate video about this yesterday after I posted my Jon Jones video. I didn't, but I'm going to address it here. This is how I think Michael Chandler could actually turn this entire debacle of waiting for Conor McGregor and all this stuff into a massive positive if he wins on Saturday. And I would love it if he did this. And I would hope that he eventually comes to this conclusion that if he wins, of course, that he doesn't need this Conor fight whatsoever. Hopefully he's coming to that conclusion on his own. Or look, obviously there's a payday involved. There's exposure that's going to be fantastic. So technically it could benefit anybody to fight Conor. But I think as fight fans, it would be, we look at these guys a lot of times as superheroes. So I think it would be fantastic if at least we get the feeling that Michael Chandler at some point is just like, yeah, Conor fighting the biggest name in sport, but I'm my own man. I'm my own fighter. I can take it or leave it. I can fight you, and that'd be great. But if you're going to pull all these shenanigans or not be serious about your training camp, forget you. I'm going to go and fight other people because I'm the man. I make my own destiny. I'd love to see something like that. And he kind of alluded to something like that today in the presser, just basically not really addressing Conor. But here's what would be awesome. If he goes out, he beats Charles Oliveira, then right after that, he'll be the #1 contender. Then he calls out Islam, and then he says, I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight Islam because I'm going to fight the winner of Islam versus Arman. And after that, I'm going to get the belt. And then, Conor, you want to fight me? Then you're going to have to beg because guess what? I'm past you. I'm beyond you. Now I've come away as the #1 contender. I'm going to get that belt. And after what you've done to me, after all the irresponsible, nonsensical decisions you made for pulling out for a broken pinky toe, I don't need you anymore. Now you want the red panty night. Now you got to come to me. Now you got to beg for forgiveness, beg for me to fight you. Maybe I'll think about it, but probably not. Otherwise, you can go sit on the sidelines, have a bare knuckle fight. Peace out. Something like that would be amazing. If he goes on the other side, flips it on Conor, and finally gets in his face. I think it's just turned a lot of fans off that he's, I don't know. He's been so subservient to Conor McGregor, essentially, even though they've been having this back and forth. Like, he's never insulted him and never said anything after all the stuff that he's put him through of this crazy long stretch of inactivity now over 2 years. So anyways, maybe it was the beginning of that. He did say he has something planned to say to Conor. Maybe it's something along those lines. Let's hope it is. And anyway, so that was kind of cool. All right. Item number 3 that was interesting is we actually did see a nice little interesting back and forth between Bo Nickal and Craig Jones. A little bit of smack talk, nothing crazy. But Craig Jones was saying that he is going to put Bo Nickal in a triangle. He's only needs one way to finish him, and he's going to take that avenue to finish him and put him in a triangle and choke him out. And then Bo Nickal retorted saying, all right, Craig Jones has one way to beat me. I've got, 100 or 1,000 or whatever he said. I think most of us feel that Bo Nickal is heavily favored and will likely win, but it's an interesting matchup, and I think it's going to be a fun fight regardless of the actual animosity between the two or lack thereof. Okay, the last kind of interesting story to come out of the presser is that it's now been officially announced that the new UFC gloves are done. Dana White, I thought that they were just being removed for this fight, almost as a show of respect to Jon Jones and Stipe and some of these older fighters that have never really fought with the new gloves, and maybe we're feeling uncomfortable with them, but it's actually bigger than just those two fighters or the fighters on the card. The official decision is now that we're going back to the old UFC gloves. The new ones, I guess, were an experiment. They tried them, but for whatever reason, they feel that the old gloves are better or superior for the sport. So they're going back to those old gloves. Again, not much additional information was given as to why, but that is the decision that was officially stated and officially announced. So that's it. That's the press overview, and that's all the updates from the press conference. Once again, nothing tremendously exciting or amazing. I think a lot of these UFC press conferences as of late have been a bit anticlimactic, but this wasn't the worst one. I'd say this was mediocre and it was interesting. And I think a lot of people tuned in, me in particular, because I wanted to see how the crowd was going to treat Jon Jones. And I think I would have been much more disappointed if they would have really gotten on his case, been chanting Aspinall or, doing all these things to sort of ruin this historic fight and take away from this amazing matchup that we have between Jon Jones and Stipe. But that didn't really happen. At least I couldn't tell. I couldn't really hear much chanting. Like I said, I did hear a little bit of quacking or things like that, but that kind of dissipated. And then at the end, I think people got behind Jon Jones, got behind this fight. And I'm hoping that the fans can appreciate what's about to go down this Saturday. So anyways, that's it. Let me know if you liked this video. If you did, make sure to click that like button. If you have a comment, make sure to leave it in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed yet but want to join along in our journey to explore the world of mixed martial arts and the UFC in particular, make sure to click subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.